Like a moth to a flame, a first-time custom PC buyer can be attracted to a shiny, colorful rig without proper due diligence prior to purchasing. Pictures like these are important, yes, but they shouldn't be the only things considered. What about cost? What about compatibility? How about balance? A rig may have a beefy graphics card packed inside, but if the underlying CPU is an old school Celeron,
you're gonna have a bad time.
Case in point, ads like these are filled with shiny RGB devices synced up to draw you in. It's actually a great tactic, and I've used it myself a time or two. There's nothing wrong with that, but don't let it distract you from the fact that Hector's gonna be running 3 Honda Civics with spoon engines, and on top of that, he just went into Harry's and bought 3 T66 turbos with NOS and a Motec system exhaust. Who wrote this? Anyway, stay with me. If you're planning your next PC build, then consider checking out our sponsor, VIP SCD Key. Their Windows 10 and 11 OEM keys sell for a fraction of retail and will unlock the full potential of your OS. They'll also remove those pesky activation watermarks. Click the links below to get started today, and be sure to use our special offer code SKGS for a sweet discount on a variety of options, including Windows 10 and 11, Pro and Home, and more. Some of you probably have no idea where that quote came from. I'll let the comments explain it. Contestant number 1. We're gonna kick things off with a colorful photo highlighting tons of Lanley RGB gear, a chonky vertical graphics card, and a Height Y40 case. The title reads, Best 4090 PC 7800X 3D. I guess I can't really complain, it is straight to the point, but what's not so straight to the point, the asking price, $4,000 down from $4,200. It's something that may have worked like around 2021, but times have wildly changed, my friend, and RTX 4090 rigs are not fetching the premiums they once were. Freshly built monster PC, best PC in the state. All right, look, I'm not gonna knock the English, it may not be his first language. I won't even knock the fact that he's calling it the best PC in the state, because while that may not objectively be true, this is one of the more expensive and premium for gaming combinations of hardware. You're not gonna find anything better really than a 4090, and you're not gonna find much better for gaming than a 7800X 3D, so he's kinda right, but it is a bit of an exaggeration. He does list additional specs, which is awesome, including fan kits. He's got the cooler as well, and this can all be very helpful, especially when you're asking this much money. Please be precise with your listings. We want to know exactly what's in them. And to round things out, he says the following. This is literally better than most pre-builds and most PCs out right now in the market. Crazy performance and blazing fast processing, out of this world gaming performance, and also great for editing. Again, stuff that he's saying here isn't technically up for much debate, but it is sensationalizing quite a bit. And as a seller, it can come across either desperate or misleading. It can add unnecessary scrutiny to what should otherwise be a pretty straightforward purchase, right? So do yourself a favor and get rid of the hype. I think that the specs speak for themselves. This doesn't mean you can't mention anything about how powerful it is. Of course, you could say it's a powerful rig or one of the most powerful you could build. That's all factually correct, but it doesn't sound as desperate as this stuff. Ugh, but this price though, it is just far too high, especially considering none of these components are technically new anymore. I mean, product warranties typically begin around the time of registration or the purchase date, so you'll lose some of that, and even though it's not disclosed, the rig's likely seen some pretty heavy use. Why else would you build something this beefy in the first place? All in, we're looking at a grand total of nearly $3,500 for a new version of this build, and so again, I don't think the $500 premium is justified, despite the fact that he's already built this for you. He's also spent a lot of money on fans as well as a motherboard that could be cut back, so I don't think that this makes any sense from a buyer's perspective unless you absolutely want this exact combination of hardware. If you're not huge on, like, you know, RGB fans, especially like expensive premium fans from a company like Lee & Lee, then why on earth would you pay exactly what this person wants, let alone a premium on top of that? On to contestant number 2 then, and you can see I chose another very colorful, very pretty rig. You can see a nice red and pinkish glow there, along with a set of black and white components. That always looks good in my opinion, but the price sure doesn't look good. The title's also missing a heck of a lot. It just says custom gaming PC, which doesn't really tell us much, and we can see that he's already marked down the price from $4,000 to $3,600. This is what some cars cost, folks. Built a couple of years back, upgraded and maintained it along the way, runs like it's brand new. Yeah, that's it. It's not enough for what he's asking. I mean, we need more in the description, including specifics of what's in the rig. We can see that he's rocking a Core i7-10700K, but we're missing the motherboard entirely. I mean, I tried my best to find like a near match for our price breakdown you'll see in a minute, but it's just, why would you ask this much money and not actually be specific about what you're selling? Like, you go through the trouble of listing the ad, but you don't explain half of what is in the product that you're trying to sell. Like, I don't understand. There's also some weird stuff in here, like 72 gigs of RAM. I don't know why he only has 3 DIMMs, so that would mean that we'd have 2 32 gig modules, so that's what, 64, and then another 8 gig DIMM? I don't know, that to me is just really odd for a PC that's supposed to be this expensive. See, the problem with an ad like this is that it leaves out so many important details that I, as the potential buyer, will end up assuming that some of the parts in here are cheaper than they actually are. After all, if everything was high-end, you'd be sure to let me know of that, right? So the fact that you aren't letting me know that means that you're probably trying to hide some things that aren't all that premium. But as you can see, I think I was generous enough here. I did choose a fairly expensive motherboard, marked as high as it is, because, well, they don't make these anymore, and third-party sellers are keen to take advantage. But okay, that's just the way it goes sometimes. I opted for an MSI Ventus RTX 4070, which is probably better than what he's actually got in here. I can't really tell. I'm sure somebody watching this video knows exactly what card that is, but I was being a nice guy, right? I picked a modern card. 4070s are still pretty expensive. I also chose an okay power supply. Again, we have no idea what's actually in here. He didn't list the PSU at all, but our sum total is still considerably less than what he's asking, nearly half in fact, and that's after giving him several benefits of the doubt. So stay far away from this colorful machine until the details are properly disclosed. And even then, I have a really good feeling that it's not gonna be worth anywhere near what he's asking. Moving on to contestant number 3, and sticking with the theme of this video, he uses a colorful photo to reel you in, and look, this looks nice, right? I mean, it is at first glance a rather clean build. I do notice, however, that he's only got an MATX motherboard in here, which leaves a bit of empty space toward the bottom of the case, often a cost-saving measure, but not always a deal breaker. We are, though, working with a very basic title. Once again, it just says custom gaming PC. I don't know what it is with folks willing to ask crazy sums of money for their rigs, only to put like 3 seconds worth of effort into their titles. Folks, the first photo and the title are the only 2 things people see while scrolling Facebook Marketplace, so please spend a bit more time on the title itself for your sake and for our sake. Brand new, just finished building, brace yourselves, Ryzen 7 7700X CPU, Corsair Vengeance DDR5 6000 MHz 32 gigs, RX 7900 XTX GPU, Corsair 4000D Airflow RGB Elite, MSI Mag 240R AIO, 3 Corsair ML120 RGB Elite fans, and 3 more Corsair AF 120 RGB Elite fans. Whew. Did you get all that? Okay, maybe use like bullet points or something for specs in the future. It just helps clean things up a bit, but I do appreciate that you actually listed everything relevant here. But I can tell you that after just simply reading this through one time, there is no way that this rig is worth $2,700. The 7900 XTX may be one of AMD's best graphics cards, but everything else in this rig is just decent. I mean, it's good, but it's not like top of the line. The 7700X is sub $300 at this point. His motherboard costs around $200 brand new, and just about everything else in here is around $100 or less. Yeah. That brings us to just about $2,000, including the ridiculous prices Corsair charges for some of their fan kits. We are still about $700 short, and no, this rig is not brand new. We can't prove you didn't already use it, and even if you hadn't, the parts themselves are, by definition, not new to the next buyer. They've all been opened, their warranties have already all kicked in, and I'm pretty sure you aren't offering your own in-house coverage. If you were, then sure, you'd be no different than any other system integrator that offers their own in-house warranty for the entire rig that's being sold, but I'm pretty sure that's not what's happening here. She may be pretty, but she's a bit too expensive for my taste, and she's not brand new. Our last contestant is simply dubbed a gaming PC, and the asking price is a cool $3,000. And at first glance, yeah, no. There's no way. Like, I've been doing this enough to know that there is not a chance in this world that that graphics card is going to fill the gap needed to make the budget make sense. Will run anything you want it to, sure. He says that in the description. He says the specs are in the picture, and basically it's still brand new, 3000 OBO. All right, any modern PC can technically run most programs. That's not what we're worried about here. We want to know how good it'll run most programs, and even if you made those claims in your description, I wouldn't trust you. I would go and watch YouTube videos, you know, from channels like ours, or Paul's Hardware, Jay's 2 Cents, Bitwit, Linus Tech Tips, whoever. You know, I want to do my due diligence that way. I don't want to just take the seller's word for it, because of course they're going to make their own rig sound better. And no, this rig is not basically brand new. We just covered that. It may only be a few months old, but by definition, she ain't new. In fact, since this rig is not sporting a 40 series card, it's just got an RTX 3080 Ti on it, which is still no slouch, but not the newest, it's possible this rig could be a year or two old. There's just no telling. Again, I wouldn't trust a statement like this just go into this expecting to pay a used price. And if the seller doesn't want to hear you, then just move on. Now, he has conveniently included a PC part picker breakdown for us, and if I get out of the way here, you can see that he conveniently left off the prices for everything. You know, in all seriousness, it is nice that he gave us something. I understand why he didn't want to show the prices, because as you'll see in a second, it's pretty nuts. Actually, let's go ahead and just throw that up right now. We'll help him out. We'll throw the prices into the mix. So yeah, it's not even close. I tried to match his list exactly. There are a couple things that are out of stock, maybe not sold by Amazon or whatever. So I do my best to try to keep it as apples to apples as possible, and I'll pull prices from other sites if I need to. His Ryzen 9 5900X costs around $250 today on Amazon. Same goes for his Kraken X53, and the same goes for his NZXT motherboard. His power supply was pretty expensive at $188, and his 3080 Ti is too high in my opinion, considering this thing's a generation old by now. You can find much better deals on these cards used via sites like eBay, but in an effort to keep things fair, of course, we'll just throw in the new price. Like, folks are still wanting for these. It's kind of crazy that 3080 Ti's are still fetching nearly $1,000 today. Just buy a 4070 Ti or a 4080. Our grand total is a whopping $2,085.41. But that still leaves about $1,000 on the table, and we are so far apart at this point that I'm not even sure it's worth negotiating. Someone who genuinely believes that their system is worth this much more than a brand new rig will not be convinced, in my opinion, with a simple screenshot. Like, you're not even gonna be able to send them a PC part picker link and haggle with them that way. It's not worth it. You'll receive a crass reply like, oh, okay, well then build it yourself if it's so cheap then. Yeah, okay, dude, yeah, that's great, awesome. I'll do that, and I'll save $1,000 in the process. It's just not worth your time of day, right? There are so many used PCs for sale on sites like Facebook Marketplace, like Jawa GG, like OfferUp and others, that it'd be a shame to give a horrible ad like this any more attention than it deserves. Well, says the guy making an entire video on said ad. Get out. That's all for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to smash that like button, consider subscribing, and sticking around for the next. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.